Now, to education matters now, the Academic Staff Union of Universities has threatened another nationwide strike to protest the absence of governing councils in all federal universities, among other issues the federal government is yet to address. ASUU President Professor Emmanuel Osodeke issued the threat at an ongoing press conference at the union's national secretariat in Abuja. The body, which said the federal government dissolved governing councils of the universities in May last year, has asked Nigerians to hold the government responsible for any decision it takes to protest the action of government. Now, to further discuss this, I'm joined by Dr. Kelechi Nwogu, an educator. Good morning and welcome. Good to have you here. So, good question to ask you to start this. Yes. Now, how does the absence of the governing council in federal universities really impact the overall quality of education and the academic activities as well? And what long-term consequences could this have on the Nigerian education system?
Running a university without a governing council is almost like raising a child without proper parenting. The governing councils of the universities should be an intermediary framework between the universities and the government of the day, where they act like they are neutral, but then they work to bring on the real values and vision of governance down to the grassroots in terms of education. So they have direct interaction with the universities of concern, and then they bring reports to the federal government on the day-to-day runnings of the universities, the challenges and all that. So when you set up a university without a governing council, it seems as though you're purposely blocking your ears to the realities and the concerns of these universities. And for the most part, it's not a very interesting idea. Okay, because how then do you get reports? You otherwise would get indirect reports through news blogs and gossip blogs and all that, and it's not appropriate. Okay, you really don't bear down on the concerns of the university, the day-to-day concerns of the university, and there isn't proper interaction, and there can't be appropriate development as you desire. Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Kechi, I hear what you're saying now. However, ASUU has done what ASUU has always done, which is to, well, give a threat, go to the media. But what alternative strategies could ASUU employ to exert the pressure that they need for the federal government to address their concerns? And what are the potential backdoor or drawbacks of another nationwide strike for students and lecturers and, in general, the education sector?
Okay, it's a sad one, because the reason why ASUU tends to the media or otherwise threatens strike action is because we don't have a listening government. I mean, this is not peculiar to any particular government. We're talking about 2009 agreements. 2009 was how many years ago? And the government of about 15 years ago. And it's sad to note that over 15 years, exchange rates have more than multiplied, right? And then there have been no responses. There have been promises, failed promises. It shows a high sense of irresponsibility on the part of the government. I mean, you set up these universities to function and to run, benchmarked with global standards. And now there's no monitoring system. There's no responsive system. Okay, so you just make promises, empty promises, and then it comes to educating the populace. Then you send them abroad. You send your own children abroad and let the children of the masses suffer in these universities. And so, how do you measure standards? How do you assess the performances of the universities? And then how do you expect the children to compete with children in other climes? So it's unfortunate, but ASUU is left with no other option than to reach out to you. Probably before this stage, a lot of letters should have been written, a lot of lobbying would have been done just to get a face with the sponsor, get a face with the government. But the government doesn't seem to be granting that access. And so the media seems to be the only channel through which they can say, okay, government, you have to hear us. So they have to condition the government to listening to their plight, hearing their cries, and doing something. And then over time, 15 years, Okay, yes, there have been interactions, but all the interactions have just gone to waste because the government has not responded as they should. There are earned allowances, there are sponsorship grants, also research grants and all that, and the government says we will do this, and government in, government out, government doesn't do what they ought to do or what they promised to do. And what do you expect? ASUU would say we'll go on strike. Now, strikes are not the best response from ASUU to the government, but you discover that most labor unions in Nigeria tend towards strikes because that is the only way they can twist the government. That is the only way they can pressure the government. That is the only way they can embarrass the government enough to taking the needed action. And then, you ask me what other style or action can they take beyond this? Communication. But where there is no communication, then there is frustration. Okay, you want to say something, but you're not given the listening ear. You think of whatever, even in the home front, your child wants to say something to you and you're not listening, you're not paying attention. The child would make all sorts of noise just to get you, paying the attention. Even if you're sleeping, the child would come, bang on your door and do everything. It's natural. So in Nigeria, the only formula that works is the strike action, especially prior to elections. Because then they are campaigning, they want votes from the labor unions, they want this, So getting on this at this time, seems to be 1 year after the previous elections. And up till now, the government of the day seems to have settled down, as we assume in Nigeria. But unfortunately, education doesn't seem to be on the exclusive list or on the emergency list of government. A lot is going wrong. And if ASUU keeps quiet, probably approaching things the way they usually do, trying to write letters, trying to seek audience with the government, things would go still, things would go to waste.
Okay,
and then the blame will be on all the university systems, the lecturers and all that. So I think strike actions seem to be the only language the government of the day understands, and that's why they use that approach.
All right, then, Dr. Kechi, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's as much as we can ask you this moment. Thank you very much.